Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy.
A chicken hide on the exterior of the car?
On the other side of the street. So you mean as you're driving along, you can hear a chicken?
Doesn't anyone screen these calls anymore?
Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred to Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders' Academy, and I'm here with my wife, Nancy, and my co-host, Frank Bradley, and Nancy is going to screen the calls.
Okay.
What's up,
guys?
If
I don't fall asleep. You're lucky I'm here, actually.
That's what she keeps telling me.
You know, guys, that intro, I've had that happen to me several times. Bring my chickens to town with me. From the country to town. They get up on the axles or inside the vehicle and then stop and get out, and then you hear something and turn around and look, and one of your chickens is getting out underneath the vehicle. I've had that happen 3 or 4 different times. I'm sure anybody that's got chickens has had that happen once.
That's exactly what was happening to her. Yeah. She'd go to work and her chickens were all of a sudden there with her. She couldn't figure it out.
You should have seen us trying to catch that one hen. I did not want to go off and leave her because she was a really nice pullet. And everybody just joined in, and here we was in a Food City parking lot, grocery store parking lot, catching that chicken. Luckily, we got her. We got her hemmed into a corner there of the store and got her, but the other two didn't fare out that well. I had to leave them. They head for the woods.
Can you believe it? This is episode 150 of our live show.
I was just thinking that when right before we come on, we should have done something special for 150.
Yeah, I thought about it, but maybe for 200,
Yeah, definitely 200. Definitely 200.
We are doing something special.
What are we? We're showing up?
Here. Yeah.
I guess so. I guess that is special.
Yeah, because we haven't been doing that. We haven't been showing up much lately, it seems like, so
holidays.
It is December. It is Christmas time. So we're all like extremely busy going Christmas shopping and going to parties and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And trying to get your tree up.
Yeah. And I'm working more on the website these days too. So I've got a lot of projects. It's been nice because I've been getting really caught up. I'm getting a lot of the podcasts ready I'm trying to do as many podcasts as I can get edited and format it for a good portion of the year, so I don't have to worry about it. I've got Tawny doing shorts for YouTube. She's doing a great job, man. So I put her on that. I don't have to worry about that. And I've been working on some of the other projects that we had half done. I'm trying to get those on the website. So we're working really hard. Just know that we plan on doing the members roundtable pretty soon, but I just want to get more caught up than I am right now. And then we'll start doing those again. But I do want to welcome our new members. We're getting a lot of a lot of new members recently, and a lot of returning members from before, which I really do appreciate.
Welcome back. You know what you're going to have to do is one of these days for your short, do the Welcome Back Carter song.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know if I I probably can't get away with that.
Yeah.
That would be
old.
They're pretty strict. Well, anymore, what they do, they just take it off. They just strip it.
Yeah.
Mute it.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
Got a bunch of them that way.
yeah. Sometimes, what happens mostly if I use a copywritten music, like the music I use for our show is all licensed music. I'm part of a website, and I purchase it, they license it to me, and I'm able to put on. But every now and then it doesn't get cleared by YouTube, and I have to go and call them up and, hey, I own this music. Leave me alone, But what they basically do is they just make it so I can't monetize the show, so I can't earn money. But I don't do that anyways, because I don't look. Yeah, YouTube isn't like that for me. I have all the powers of monetizing all my videos and everything, but I turn all that off. Because I don't want other people's advertisements messing up my show while people are watching it, and I have the same thing going on inside the website where I don't want any kind of advertisement showing up on my master's class videos and stuff. So I don't even do it. So they can threaten me all they want that I'm not able to monetize it because I don't even have them turned on.
Yeah. The biggest part of making money on those is your performance, how many people you reach. The advertisements are pennies on the dollar. I mean, it's not even worth fooling with as far as ads, but your likes and your views, that's what really gets you the cash fast if you have a lot of those.
Yeah. So I don't really worry about what I make on YouTube.
Yeah. Speaking of that, guys, make sure that you like, subscribe, and give us a thumbs up if you like what you are seeing and watching.
Yeah. And if I do appreciate all the members that joined. I appreciate the members that came back from before. But if you want to join the Breeders' Academy, the membership is open right now. You can actually register. Just click that QR code in the corner or go to www.breedersacademy.com. Once you join, you'll have instant access to the website. You'll have access to the Founders Program, the Master's Class videos, members roundtables, all the programs and courses that support the Founders Program. We have daily articles. We even do coaching calls. So it's a really good website. I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about the coaching calls is they get on and they tell me how much they love the website and how surprised they are on how much is actually in there, more than they ever thought, So yeah, just go to www.breedersacademy.com and there you can register. Also, I really appreciate all the people that have ordered from our Cafe Press. Once again, just click the QR code. That'll take you to one of the pages, and then you can start searching on all the different products. I can't tell you how many different products they have. Some of these guys that are buying, some of the people that are buying products from us is a lot of coffee cups, license plates, stickers, T-shirts, and hats. That's what I've noticed so far. But they have all kinds of stuff. It's amazing the different products they have on there.
That license plate is usually the big one, and the coffee cups. That's the two biggest.
Yeah. Those are pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw them on the Cafe Press, but I didn't think anybody would actually order them. But that's cool. What's wrong, Nancy?
Have a little faith.
No,
I don't think anybody would order them.
No, it's not so much that. It's like I expected the hats, I expected the T-shirts, and the coffee cups. But there's some things I saw in there I just thought, Okay, well, whatever, but they're actually ordering them. That's cool. Even if you're not going to join the website for now, make sure you join our newsletter. We call it the Breeders Bulletin. There you're going to get articles, tips on breeding. You're going to get free bonus material like the ebooks and the downloadable PDFs. Again, just go to www.breedersacademy.com, subscribe to our newsletter. You're going to get you'll get a newsletter like once a day for a little while, then it'll back off to once a week, and it goes for like 6 months. But I do add new emails to that periodically. So I think that's
wow. You got through all of the announcements in 10 minutes.
It's a record, isn't it?
Good job. So what are we talking about today?
We're going to
Moving
be
on.
Yeah, let me put this back. Nope, wrong one. By the way, Peter is coming. I didn't mean to do that, but Peter is coming on pretty soon. We've got a few topics that we're going to cover. And so I'll let you know when that is.
If you guys have got a question about problems you're having with disease or anything of the health issues or just vitamins or whatever about chickens, Peter's the man.
Yeah. And again, click the QR code. The address to his website is at the bottom here. First State Veterinary Supply. He's the one I send everybody to. If you have a question I can't answer, I don't really tackle the healthcare too much because I'm a caller, but we do have a great healthcare page on the website with all kinds of information. We cover all the most common illnesses. Peter Brown, his shows are there. Dr. Gallardo's there. So check those out. All the information to contact Peter Brown is on the website, but you can contact him here too. Have any questions, need medications, contact Peter. Okay. So today's going to be an interesting one. It's a continuation of what we were doing last week or the week before. On the 12, what did I call it?
The 12 key challenges in breeding and creating a strain.
Yeah, and I think last time we covered 1 through 5. This is going to be 6 through 8. And it's basically what I called it was evolution of the strain, connecting evolutionary biology to selective breeding. To me, this is a big one. It's a big challenge because it's not one that most people think about, Frank. They look at breeding, they'll look at breeding methods, maybe some of them will tackle a breeding program, not very many, but some do. But the idea of associating selective breeding, what we do as breeders with evolutionary biology, is beyond most people. It's something they don't think about, they never contemplate it. But I'll tell you, once we start teaching them in our shows, masterclass videos, on the website, it really opens their eyes and changes the way they do everything. If you can understand evolutionary biology, you can understand why we do what we do when we're actually breeding, using breeding programs, especially the Founders Program, which is based on a lot of the evolutionary mechanisms. So, yeah.
Well, selective breeding is like light years from Mother Nature. What we can do with birds, and it opens your eyes up to what we can create with our own 2 hands and eyes. If you look at all the avian species that's in the world, they have one thing in common. All of them has the right type conformation and the health and the vigor needed to live in their environment. So I think it goes hand in hand with selective breeding.
Yeah. You follow the mechanisms of evolution, and you can't, I always say it, stay as close to Mother Nature as possible, and you can't go wrong. Okay. And so one of the 4 mechanisms of evolution that Darwin came up that has a lot to do with natural selection is variation, inheritance, overpopulation of offspring, and the differential survival and reproduction. So I thought we'd start by tackling those. Now, variation's interesting because without variation, you can't create a strain and you can't improve a strain, Frank. It's the key mechanisms for change.
Yeah. Well, you look at it this way. You've had your birds for a long time. I've had some of mine for a very long time. And if that's not true, we'd never be able to go any farther once we got to a certain point. But that's the kicker about breeding, is that it's a never ending process. A lot of people think, well, I get them to where I want them, I'm done with them. It's in the game over. Well, no, your work's just starting once you get them to where you want them, because it's a bigger task of keeping them that way while still improving them than it is starting out making the string.
Yeah, because I never added outside blood. I got my Colonel Givens like 30 years ago or so. Okay. And everybody, even Tony would go, what'd you put in them to get them like this? I go, I didn't do anything. I didn't put anything into them. All I did was start looking for the variations that worked in my favor. I selected towards them. Sometimes I exaggerate them, and little by little, the family took shape. I didn't have to add any blood into them. It was amazing the variations, the genetic diversity that popped up from time to time. And I just started breeding towards it. And like I said, it really fixed the family, it made the family what it is today. And that's proof to me. And that was one of the first indications that showed me that we don't need to keep adding new blood to get what we want. Okay. Everybody thinks they're only going to get what they want by adding new blood. Well, that's going to create more variation. We do want to lessen the variation as much as possible because we want to get to homozygosity. But no matter, I actually tell people, no matter how uniform you make them, there's always going to be some variation that pops up. And that's what you're going to use to change them. There's a term that says, without variation, selection is impossible. Without selection, improvement's impossible. And I took that to heart. Okay. So, yeah, variation is really important. It's the mechanism of evolution, and it's the key mechanism of selective breeding.
A lot of the diversity we see in hybrid strings when we're starting out making our own string can be important sometimes. It's really nice to see the avenues that you can go with, whichever direction that you want, just like with Kenny's birds. I think you had, Kenny, 3 or 4 different type, like the spangles, the light reds, the dark reds, many different types just in that one string of bird. Kenny picked out what he wanted that string to become, and he bred toward that. And over time, that's what he ended up with. So now Kenny's not getting all the rest of those. Now, could one still pop up eventually? Yes, one could, but you're not getting as much of that. Your foundation fowl should breed true, but there's always that chance something may pop up that you either say, well, I'm going to see where I can go with this, or I'm going to just do away with it forever. That's the decisions you have to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when I first got them, you're right. They produced a dark red, light red, and the spangled. And in the spangled, I had the light red spangled and the dark red spangled. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so what I did right away was I created separate families with each. And little by little, I started, fine tuning them. Light red, I did have a problem with. And like you said, sometimes you might get one pop up from time to time, which it's funny you said that, because now I haven't seen the spangled in a long time. Once I realized I couldn't perfect them and I couldn't fine tune them, I couldn't really make them into a solid family. I was always going to get variation. It wasn't something I was going to be able to fix. I said, forget the spangled. They're just too much. They're too difficult. They're too much problem. And all the ones you see on like my social media or on my website, those were the good ones. They weren't always that good. And everybody always wanted the good ones and not the bad ones. So there's too much variation when it came to the spangled, and I couldn't perfect them. And then the light red, I was able to keep that one going for a long time, but they did start to kind of falter to where they weren't as light as they were. But it's funny, Frank, because this year, I must have hit the right hen with the right combination. I've got one really beautiful wheaten hen from this, which I hadn't seen in years. Okay. And I got 3 really nice light red cocks.
Wow.
So I'm going to probably reestablish what I used to call the Tecumseh line and just make that a separate family. But I did kind of eventually did get rid of the light reds. I did get rid of the spangled, and I didn't see those for a long time. And I just fine-tuned the dark reds. And I made them into what I feel is some of the best birds out there right now, never adding outside blood. What's up, Nance?
Okay, got a question for you. I've got 2 questions for you. Even if you have a lot of variation, some you like, some you don't like, I guess it's more of a statement. Don't give up. Don't like you tell people, don't incorporate outside blood into your family. I'm sorry, I'm really tired, guys. Don't bring in new blood. But even if you have a lot of variation, even if you have variation that you don't like, you can still do something with it. It's going to take a while. It may take seasons of breeding and seasons of selection, but you can make it what you want. So try not to get frustrated with your family if it's going in a direction you don't want. But my question to you, Kenny, is with the Spangleds, was that a rarity? Because you said you gave up on them. Because they were just too hard to make a complete family out of them where they come uniform and consistent. Was that a rarity that happens, or, you know, is that, am I talking out of both sides of my mouth saying, guys, don't give up, just keep selecting and you'll get where you want to go, even though you're getting a lot of variation?
Okay. Some families, some varieties, some color varieties are easier than others. And some are, I want to call them derivatives of different mixture of different breeds. Okay. Spangled I think it's an incomplete dominant trait. And it's also what's the word for it?
Inconsistent.
No, there's
Very
another.
inconsistent.
Yeah, it is inconsistent. It's I can't remember the word for it. It's a genetic term, but yeah, I can't remember now. But I just could not get them to where I could repeat them and improve them as I went. There was just too many different intensities for that particular trait. Some showed it a lot, some barely showed it, some showed different varieties of it, and I just got tired of it. It just wasn't something I wanted to deal with. Okay, and if I couldn't perfect them, I didn't want to raise them. But understand that there's different sources or reasons for I'm not finding the words today for some reason, for variation. You've got mutations, which are rare but do occur. You have genetic recombination through meiosis and the crossover event that creates variation, and then you have other factors, which is adding outside blood, random breeding and adding outside blood. And the idea is to tighten that family to a point where you don't see as much variation. You lessen the genetic diversity, but like you said, don't give up, because the idea is to find the birds that stand out and get rid of everything else and improve them. And then when you see the variations that work in your favor, you select those. And in time, the family takes shape. And that you continue that on, no matter whether you're running through the Founders Program or not. That's what you're doing. Your variation is variation, selection, looking for the standouts is key to improvement.
Well, let me ask you this, Frank, because I know you have some splash, I believe, on your farm. Is it easier to raise a family of splash compared to a family of spangled?
Yeah. Well, yes and no.
Different. It's a different color altogether.
It's a different color altogether. But here's the thing. Let's go to my silver grays. When I first started out with them, all of them showed red leakage all over them, to the point to where the wing pads were orange, bright orange. So I kept breeding them. They was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So I finally gathered up, educated myself, know what I was doing. So I'm back breeding them. Within 3 years, all of them come so silver. They're almost snow white on the grays. But I still, each year I get a less percentage of the ones with the red leakage. I get a few, but every year that dwindles down. Now in a couple of years, if I play my cards right and I select the way I need to, I know those is going to go away. Now, will one ever pop back up again? Yes. It's never going to be, I know it's never going to be 100% that I'm going to wipe them completely out. But you can get it down like Kenny was talking about. Tighten that gene pool up to where you're making your selections better each year. And it shows with the offspring. You'll get less and less of what you're going away from over time.
Now, understand this too, as far as splash is kind of opposite of spangled. You'll get more splash. Okay. But splash, according to Brian, is progressive white, which is going to get worse. That's the problem with splash. It doesn't get, you can't maintain like a little white and a little red that makes it look like a spangled kind of. They just want to, unless you're selecting them properly, they're just going to get whiter and whiter as you go. It almost destroys itself.
Well, mine's not a true splash or what
No.
you consider a splash. No, they started out as sports, and then I bred the red back into them. That's how they got the different colors in them now. But
Okay.
I've got sports that come, if you breed white on white, they come snow white, not another color on them. But
Yeah.
the ones you're seeing with like the black feathers and the red feathers on them,
Yeah.
that's the sports that I bred back into the red family. Same family, just bred them back, and then they get like the splash look.
Yeah, you're
Oh.
getting that because the white in American games are recessive and they will repeat themselves. That's the cool thing about white. Now, like a lot of the Mediterranean breeds, like Leghorns, those are dominant white. That's a whole different story, you know.
Yeah.
And you could get different colors by breeding the red to the white when it's dominant white. You get like the red pile, things like that, you know.
It's just like the we talk about, Kenny. Same way, you know, Kenny seen early on there wasn't any that wasn't going to be a pure trait, the splash, or not the splash, but the spangles.
Yeah.
That I know Kenny that diverted him off because he couldn't make them the same each mating. Blue's the same way. You can't get them all the same color. It's going to vary from individual.
Yep. Yeah. So when it comes to variation, understand, and this is a good thing at first, but and then you want to tighten up that. Well, here, let me see. How was I going to say this? A lot of people talk about variation and they think about like they do their inbreeding, they breed brother and sister, and they think that because they're brother and sister, that there's no variation in the offspring because the gene pool's already so tight that they get themselves into an issue of inbreeding depression and other factors because they are so tight that you won't see the variation. I'm saying that even breeding brother and sister with our chickens, they're not identical twins. Their genetic makeup, their DNA is actually quite different, more than you would think. They still go through meiosis. They still go through the crossover event. They still go through gene recombination. So you're still going to get that variation. Even when you breed brother and sister, even with a close family, you're still going to see variation in the offspring. And it's up to you to select the ones that you want to move forward with and get rid of the rest. Even from a brother and sister mating, not all the offspring are going to be awesome. And no matter what breeding you're doing, you're not going to breed, no matter how the offspring you produce from any breeding, you're not going to breed from all of them. You're always going to select from that, starting with the 10% and then selecting the standouts after that. So just understand that variation occurs no matter how tight they are. They're just not identical.
Now it depends. If the birds are from a true family and you do an inbreeding brother and sister, your majority of birds will be nicer birds. But if they've not went through a cleanup program, you're going to see some nasty, ugly looking stuff in there. But like Kenny said, you're only looking for that one, those couple individuals that you can go on with. You don't need all the other ones, you know. So if you get one good one and 50 that's junk, four-eyed, you know, four legs, that sort of thing, it's no worries because you've got the one that you needed. Your job's done.
The inbreeding that you do, the brother and sister mating you do in the beginning of a breeding program, and the results you're going to get are completely different, like Frank said, from the one you do after the family's somewhat established. Because not only you're already getting a lot of uniformity, a lot of consistency. So you're seeing predictability and repeatability. But when you do that inbreeding later in the program, an established family, it's like Frank said, now they're still not identical. You're still going to get the variation. And a lot of times it's going to be very subtle, but they're even more uniform, more consistent, and you get a better result. Like in the beginning of a breeding program, you're doing the inbreeding, you'll see good birds, mediocre, and really bad birds. And this is, I don't care what animal you're breeding, you still get the same thing. Okay. That's kind of what you want because that's going to help you select. And then it's a furthering of the cleanup process. Okay. But at the end of the breeding program, if you decide to do an inbreeding, you don't get it as much. The bad isn't as bad as you would think. The mediocre is better than you would expect. And the good are really good. So it's the coals are a lot less at that point. It's kind of cool.
So are you saying the variation is a lot less?
Yeah, it is.
Between
And
the
it's what you
sister?
want. But what I'm saying is, although let's say you create a family, use a proper breeding program like the Founders Program. You get at the end, and I'm trying to be careful what I say here, but you decide to go ahead and let's tighten them up a little more and do some inbreeding. No matter how tight they are, you're still going to get that variation's there. So everybody's always afraid of losing the variation, losing the genetic diversity, getting them so tight that you start getting disease and defects and things like that. Well, if you put them through a proper cleanup process like we promote in the Founders Program, you're not going to see those kind of defects as much. You're definitely not going to see disease because you've been culling them out all along. The only reason you're going to see disease is because you brought another bird with that particular defect or disease onto your yard that wasn't there before, and then it changes everything. So the last thing you want to do when you have a family that established is to do any kind of crossing, outcrossing, or infusion, because you just started over. You recombinate the genes. They went through meiosis. They went through the crossover event. You recombinate the genes. Now they're completely different than they were before.
Well, Kenny, that's the reason we always tell people that's the reason the trio method doesn't work, because the two sisters are different. Even though they're sisters, their genetic makeup is totally different. And, excuse me. And that's the reason we always tell them, if you do go get a trio, single mate them, find out which hen produces the best, go with her, do away with the other and keep her for a backup, but do not bring her back in once you start your family that way. That's where a lot of people messes up. Especially because they're doing something that's similar to line breeding right off the bat. And we don't promote that with the Founders Program, because 99% of the time you're line breeding birds that weren't ready to be line bred. They had too much variation, too much genetic diversity. If you're line breeding, I mean, you're seeing a lot of variation within the offspring as you go, then you see it right there. They weren't cleaned up. You're just never going to get there. And then what they do, they think it's going to boost them up, refreshing them. Like Frank said, they have the two lines where the two sisters that started with the outside cock, then they breed them together and then increase the genetic diversity and the variation that's in the family, because they were two different hens and they were line breeding into their offspring going in two different directions, and then they brought them back. You can't do that when you haven't cleaned them up properly. So the trio method is a very flawed method. I understand it. I used to teach it myself years ago. I thought it was the best way to go. It's the best way to get a trio and start, but it really isn't. It's a lot more flawed than most people would think. Well, I had a Facebook friend comment on one of my posts. I think it was this week, and we were talking, and he asked me if I saw worse health in my foundation fowl than I did my hybrids. And I said, no, one's as healthy as the other. And he said, well, I have a problem with my foundation fowl being much unhealthier than my hybrids are. And I said, well, it's selection. It's basic selection. You select birds that's never been sick, that show no sign of illness, that's vigorous. You're going to have a healthy family. But all it takes is a couple times to put an unhealthy bird in that chain, and then you've mixed it all up. You're going to keep that sickness in there until you breed it totally away from it. Get rid of it. Yeah, that's a key. That I hear that all the time, that the purer they are, the weaker they are, the smaller they are, and all that. Selection. It's just selection. Because if you're not culling hard as you go, and we say it all the time, you get what you tolerate, whether it's a sickness or a defect. If you're willing to tolerate and breed to it, you're going to exaggerate it and make it worse. Okay. And if you're not being careful which birds you're selecting, a lot of people can select the cock, but they can't select the hen. A lot of times they're losing size because they're selecting the wrong hens. I've seen it a million times where I said, let me see your birds, because they're getting smaller. Well, they're not really careful about the hens they select. They're selecting the hens because they belong to a certain name, or they just happen to have a really good plumage or something. There was something about the hen that attracted them, but they weren't really paying attention to the size. So, almost all of them will tell you it wasn't something that happened overnight. It's something that gradually happened, and they woke up one day and says, whoa, my chickens are smaller than they used to be. But it happened gradually over time. It's not something that just happened. So you can see where it's the selection, I see that a lot, Kenny. Basically, people will take, say I'm making a recipe and this gasoline over here has a cherry on top of it. And I take the gasoline to get the cherry and I put it into the recipe. Well, I've destroyed my recipe. That's what a lot of people's doing. They see a cherry, but they're willing to put other really bad stuff in there with the possibility of just getting the cherry. And it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. And I hear it all the time too. And it just cracks me up because they go, well, my birds were getting smaller because they're getting too pure. So I crossed them and then they got the size back. And I'm like, well, first of all, you weren't selecting properly in the first place. So you lost the size. Because I have birds out here that are 30 years, the family's over 30 years old, and I have not lost the size. Would you say my birds are small, Frank?
No, actually, actually, they're on the bigger side, really.
They could be a little bit.
They could be. They've got the structure for it, even as young birds.
Yeah. So they're not getting smaller. Okay. And so when they cross or added blood into them, we talk about this all the time. I feel like a broken record, but they got hybrid vigor. And that's what hybrid vigor does. It makes the offspring bigger, better, faster, stronger, smarter than the parents. It just makes the genes, it's over dominance is what it is. And we talk about all the time where when you have a heterosis, which is hybrid vigor, what you get is, let's say the parents that I'm breeding, the crosses that I'm doing, let's say that they're 100% of their potential. We're just making that the mark. Okay, I breed them together, I get offspring, and I get offspring that are 120, 130% of the parents' potential. So it seems like it was a great breeding, very impressive, and you think you hit the jackpot. Okay, so now you think you got really good birds, so you decide you're going to make a family from that. So you start to breed them within the family, and they don't actually maintain hybrid vigor. They don't actually improve hybrid vigor. They actually get offspring that are so unpredictable, it's crazy. And a lot of times they go below, not the 120, 130 that their parents were, or their grandparents, which was 100% potential. They actually drop down to 80 or 90%. They actually go below. So everybody freaks out. Well, the family didn't work out. The genes weren't there. I guess I'll bring in new blood. And I hear all the time, I hear it in the dog community, and I hear it in the chicken community, that I'm outcrossing to improve hybrid vigor, or I'm outcrossing to maintain hybrid vigor. There's no such thing as improving hybrid vigor or maintaining hybrid vigor. There's no such thing, because hybrid vigor is a one-time deal. The hybrid animal, a hybrid bird, is the product. It's a one-time deal. It's not inheritable. It's not passed to the next generation. It's just like the opposite of hybrid vigor, which is inbreeding depression, which is also neither inheritable or passed to the next generation. So get this idea out of your head that I want to search for hybrid vigor. Hybrid vigor is a product of breeding two different animals together for a particular purpose, whatever that may be. Chickens could be anything, okay? But the idea of creating improving them as you go through hybrid vigor, that thinking is wrong. That's flawed.
It can be done. And if they read on meiosis, they'll find that out as well. Meiosis explains that reason why it can't be passed on.
Well, that will show why you have variation for sure.
Right.
But heterosis and inbreeding depression, two factors on the opposite side of the coin, both of them are not inherited, not passed to the next generation. It's a one-time deal. Just get that in your head. So the idea of outcrossing to improve a family, you didn't improve anything, you changed them. And they're not what they used to be. So
what gets me though, guys, is people think that because you've got a foundation bird, straight bred bird, and not a hybrid, that they should like bantams. They should be 3 pounds, 10 ounces, and look like hummingbirds. Even though hybrids are, Kenny mentioned it earlier, bigger, faster, all the above, better birds. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why you can't make a foundation bird, a pure trait bird, look just as good on the outside, the same proportions, the same size, good vigor. Yes, are the hybrids better? Yes, but your straight bred birds don't have to look like pigeons either, okay, to be pure trait birds. They don't have to be. You can still have the same conformation, the same the same looks on the outside of that bird as that hybrid bird does. It doesn't mean that because he's straight bred, he's got to be less than to the hybrid as the way he looks in his size.
Well, when you breed two seed fowl, when you breed two seed fowl together, which is your Adam and Eve, and they're unrelated, the offspring are going to be hybrids, but you're basically matching up the genes as best you can. And the better you match them, the chance of you getting there quicker is better. Okay. That way you don't have the variation and the genetic diversity to weed through. But the idea is to, yes, you can create a family from hybrid birds, but it's done over many generations. Doing the right methods at the right time over many generations will get you there. You just can't keep adding outside blood thinking you're refreshing them to improve them, because you're not. You're just starting over. You just shuffle the genes. It's like shuffling cards. Okay. So, but understand, we'll talk about this in a week or so when we start talking about genetics, is that you're dealing with either monogenic traits, which is dominant recessive. Those are simple, easy to fix, easy to improve, easy to eliminate. Then you got the polygenic traits, which you're only going to get by improving, bringing to the highest intensity over many generations. And those are all the form and function traits. So yes, hybrid offspring are going to excel in those areas only because of hybrid vigor, but to maintain them or think you're maintaining or to improve them along the way, it's selecting for those traits over multiple generations, which is going to make it happen. So that makes sense?
That's me. I want to maintain my birds. I want my birds to be my birds the way I bred them. And by taking outside blood and adding to those birds, I'm changing them forever. They will never, ever be those same birds again, ever.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of people, they had these great birds over time. And then 4 or 5 years down the road, they're saying, I've lost my birds. My birds are not what they're supposed to be. But, they kept adding blood. They watered them down over a period of time to make them non-existent pretty much. By this way, and using a proper breeding program, you're keeping those birds, as long as you want to be a breeder and do what you're supposed to, there's no expiration on keeping those birds where they're at while still improving them.
Yep. So this kind of leads us right into the next one.
No, because I have a question on what you guys were talking about before.
Okay. We almost left Nancy behind. Okay.
Used to it. I should be used to it. No,
I didn't see a red light, so I didn't think you were going to be there.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Going back to birds getting smaller and smaller throughout the seasons, and thinking that, you're getting into what did you call
Depression.
it?
Hybrid vigor?
No, depression.
Oh,
okay.
Inbreeding depression.
Inbreeding depression is what I'm trying to say. Would it be a good idea to every breeding season, you take a picture of your flock and you can compare from year to year? And it kind of shows you where you're going with your flock, the different varieties that are actually coming through, showing through your flock. Basically, your God, I'm lost for words.
Nancy, we say it all the time. You're always
documenting.
Good.
Yeah, you're documenting what you've got.
Yeah, it's always good to take pictures and video every year to compare. Yeah.
So in that way, you're checking yourself. Are you going in the direction you should be going, or are you going in a bad direction? You're not even noticing that you're going in a bad direction because it's so subtle, like the frog being thrown in a pot of water and slowly going to a boil.
Yeah.
No, I do all that. I keep records on every hen. Every hen I breed, that is her resume for me. I look at her offspring, the percentage of them was good, the culls, the defects, the whole 9 yards. That's her resume on her offspring when they're bred out. Do I breed her again after that? Do I not breed her again after that? The rooster's the same way. Every year, it's just like a resume. They're, do they have this? Do they have that? Do they have this? Do they have that? And compare all of them together. And once again, I'll say it, selection. It's all about selection, every bit of it.
Yeah, record keeping, documentation, video, pictures. Yeah, it all works. Yeah,
it may take me 3 or 4 months when the pullets become hens, it may take me 3 or 4 months just to go through and see, look at potentials. If I'm needing some new ones to breed, I'll leave them in a pen and I watch their every move. And I never pick out the ones that I want. It's always something that I dislike. If I see something that I dislike, I'll remove her from the pen. And I'll go the next day, sit down there, me and Amanda talk, have her discussions, whatever. And I'm watching the chickens. If I see another one that does something that I really don't like or see something I don't like about her, I take her out. So I'm only down to a handful of birds, and then I make my choice.
I always tell people, cull hard, then select. Don't start selecting until you've culled hard. It makes it a lot easier when you're dealing with less birds. That way, and the whole idea is to get down to the top 10%, like we talked about. Then from there, you grow them up a little further, and then you select the standouts. And that's what's going to move your family forward.
Take it from Mother Nature. You cull like Mother Nature does, you'll do good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's my next question. At what point, what's your deadline point to start putting your birds together in the springtime? Is it April, May, March? Before you figure out, okay, I've culled enough, I've got to make my decisions now. Where is your deadline? Because I know it isn't July, because that's the middle of summer.
I want to be ready for breeding season. So I'm culling all the time. We cull starting with the eggs. We're looking at the baby chicks, looking for anything that's obvious. Anytime I pick up a bird, move a bird, I'm checking them then. Okay. I wait till the birds get to at least or somewhat close to 2 years before I consider them as something I'm going to breed. I'm thinking I want to be ready I want to have my brood pen set up by January or so, maybe February tops. Okay. So that I'm ready for breeding. A lot of times I already know what I'm breeding for the most part because I know my breeding program. I know who's going to be bred to who. I know what families I want to move forward and how I'm going to do it. Okay. So yeah, my goal is to be ready before they start laying.
Okay. So let me ask you one more question, because I've seen through the post office, I'm seeing eggs come through the post office for breeding purposes for hatching right now. And we're in December. Would you say that getting eggs from a bird that just finished the molt, your I don't know, what's the quality going to be? Is it should you be waiting till January, February before you buy eggs from somebody else?
I think you're taking a risk no matter what, tell you the truth. Okay.
That's what I was thinking. It doesn't matter really, because you're taking a chance either way you go getting eggs.
I try to stay as close to Mother Nature as possible. Eggs are hit and miss. The fact that they're getting eggs at that time of year, they could have lights on them. Are they fertile? That's my biggest question. Are they fertile? They're going through a lot when they're going through the molt. Are they producing quality eggs at that point? Are they even feeding them or giving the birds the attention that they need? I'm just not a big proponent of hatching or breeding in the wintertime or in the summertime. And I want those birds to be able to go through the molt properly without trying to look for ways to stimulate egg production at that time. So, I'm just not I'm not big into that.
I always let my birds tell me when to put them up. They let me know when they're ready to go by their actions, the way they, their plumage, their health, the way they act. Are they laying every day, every other day, once every 3 or 4 days? They'll let you know. They'll start dumping the eggs out fast when it's time. When the daylight hours get more, they're just like a clock. They'll let you know. They'll start dumping the eggs out left and right.
Yeah. And the hens start squatting for the roosters.
Yeah.
So they're ready.
Yeah. If they're not cooperating with the roosters, they're not ready.
That's right. They'll let you know, basically. If you watch them, they will let you know when it's time and they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Right. So for somebody who has to get hatching eggs because they definitely don't want to get it from a hatchery. They want to get eggs for a specific type of variety from a breeder. It's best to wait until January, February to purchase eggs. Would you say?
Well, I'm telling you, I'm just not big into ordering eggs. I think you're taking a risk.
The thing about it is, this is what I look at, Nancy, on mine. I want to get my birds off to the time they feather out, because I keep them up until they completely feather out. Now, if they're with their mama or incubator hatched, it determines what the weather is out. Is it warm? But I want it when I free range them. I want them to be plenty of bugs. I want to be plenty of insects. I want a lot of green, say around, spring of the year. By that time, by the time I turn them out, I want all that to be abundant for them. I don't want to turn them out and hit 20, 30 degrees, because you're not going to be able to, they're not going to do well. They're not going to do well at all. So, the weather, the month has a lot to do with it. I want it to be spring, warmer weather, and plenty for them to eat, because I tell you what Mother Nature produces for our birds to eat free ranging is like no other than we can feed them. I mean, it's just you take a bird that runs out free ranging, pick him up and fill of him.
Oh yeah.
It's just totally different what the bodies that it can put on them.
I believe the birds you produce and how they grow and develop in this wintertime is completely different than what you get in the spring.
True.
Whether you buy the eggs from someone else or whatever. So, I'm just not a big proponent, first of all, of getting eggs. I'd rather get chicks over eggs, and I'd rather get a mature trio over chicks.
I see it every day, horror stories, people ordering one strain, and then when they get their eggs and they hatch, it's just everything. Everything under the sun. And what it is, basically people going around and picking eggs up out of just random cages and sending an egg thinking, well, it's not going to hatch anyway. And then they get a couple to hatch. It's not even what they order. It's the biggest ripoff on the sun.
And if you're going to buy a trio or a pair, try to go pick them out yourself if possible. Other than that, you're taking a chance. Now,
it's terrible out there today.
I think there's good birds. We say it all the time. I think there's good birds on a pillar's farm, and I think there's good birds on a breeder's farm. You just got to know what to select. And if you're taking the chance to let them pick them for you, then you're taking a big risk, and the chances of you making a family are going to be slim.
I'd have to know the guy good and well to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd have to trust him. I'd have to trust him to do that.
So I would select my own birds, and I would go in there. Like a lot of people say, well, I'm waiting to get my birds, and then I'm going to join the Breeders' Academy. I'm going, no. If that's where you're at, man, join the Breeders' Academy now so that you know which birds to select. Because we're going to show you what they should look like, what they should have, how they should be built. We're going to give you an idea of the type conformation defects of the bird, all the defects that exist. Okay. And you're going to go there educated. You're going to go there with a little bit of knowledge so that you can actually select the birds that are going to work for you. Do they need to be pure? No. If I can look at a bird and he has a type and he has a phenotype that I'm looking for, that I can build from, he doesn't have any he's not sick, doesn't have any major flaws, then I can build a family from that. And if I can select a hen to go with it, maybe I may have to find a hen from another farm. As long as it matches the cock that I'm selecting, and vice versa, I'm good to go. So you got to go into this a little bit educated, kind of know what you're dealing with, so that you're getting off on the right foot. But if you're depending on others or someone to get you good birds, then I don't know. That's I hear all the time. It's just so disappointing. I hate being the bearer of bad news, saying, well, can you get another pair? Can you look a little further? Because these two have a lot of issues.
Well, the thing about it is, think about it this way. They get a pair or a trio chickens. It's 2 years before they know anything, before you get it, chicks mature enough out of it to even test them for the qualities that you're looking for in the bird. And then by that time, you then realize, oh, I got a bunch of junk. Yeah. So that's 2 years just destroyed right off the bat. That's the chance that you're taking from getting birds from people that you don't know, is to realize that in 2.5 years that they ripped you off.
Maybe $1,000 or $2,000 on top of it too.
And all the time and all that money, all your feed money to just cull everything. So it's something I would look into, and I thank God every day that I've already got my chickens established and I don't have to go out looking for other birds to buy. But if I was, I'd use my head, I'd do my research. I would know that guy's routine so good that I know him better than he knew himself before I'd buy birds for him. It would be that critical to me.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the guys here, Valley Garage, said that he just couldn't afford a trio at the time. So he went ahead and got some day old chicks, and they all turned out to be junk. And it's like what you said, Frank, how much is your time and money, how much is all that worth to you? Save your money, save up until you can buy a trio and start from there. Instead of, with the chicks, you've got to wait a couple of years, let them grow up and see if they're going to be any good or not. When you have a trio, you know what you're getting into from, seeing what you got.
You might get variation from the trio, but we always say hatch as many as you can manage and afford, which we're going to talk about in a minute here. That will give you the selection you need to find the two at least that are going to move you forward. That's all you need. That's all you need to move forward, and that's the key. So, the problem is most people don't know. They're not patient.
They get too big a hurry.
And they're not educated enough to know. I don't want that to sound bad, but they're just not ready to select the right birds.
Not that they're smart. They're just not educated in the proper structure and know-how on the chicken.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
Because we say it all the time. Look on social media. It's a crapshoot. They're so bad. They just don't know it. If they're, they're proud of them if they're showing them, if they're posting them, but they're so off. It's not.
I could have hit a nerve the other day. I done a short article, and it was replicators versus true breeders, and I heard crickets on it. So I figured, well, I guess what that tells me, pretty much. But it's basically people buying a pair or trio off one breeder and replicating them and not trying to improve them or look for defects or just whatever they get, and everything they get, they breed from that. Every bird's got a value in it, and that's not the way a true breeder does. I mean, it's not close.
We hear it all the time, and Frank really opened my eyes to this, is because it just didn't dawn on me. I mean, I thought, okay, if you're willing or you understand line breeding, then you understand that you're actually trying to improve the family, but they're using. And I didn't get it at first, but they're using line breeding to maintain the family. That doesn't even make sense to me. Okay. So when they get birds, I hear it all the time on other interviews where the guy will go, okay, well, I got the bird. Yeah, I use line breeding. And my only goal is to maintain the family like I got them, to keep the family as I got them from the breeder. It doesn't even dawn on them that they need to improve them, that they can improve them. They think it's good enough that they keep them the way they were when they first got them. That just amazes me.
Yeah, because the thing about it is man-made game fowl. Without man, game fowl would not exist in this world. We made every attribute of those birds. Every strain you see out there, man-made. Nothing, God made give us the knowledge to do it, but man took the hands and made what strains that we have today. And a lot of people is not even leery of that. They don't even know that. They think a hatch popped out of an egg and a kelso popped out of the egg. They don't even know it's the name of an actual breeder that bred the chickens. They think it's like a Dalmatian or a collie or something to that. It was born that way.
No, we create the form, the function, the beauty, and the purpose of that bird.
Yeah.
And we have to selectively breed them just to keep it.
That's right.
And yes, we can improve them as we go. So
it's amazing. It's amazing how different people see it in different ways. But it's like I always tell people. A lot of people will shun science. They push science away, and then they turn around. They're using science every day, multiple times. Everything that we do in life every day is related to science. Our computers, everything. Our vehicles, everything.
Yeah, that's been a struggle of mine since the beginning. Was getting people to embrace the science and understand there's a reason for it. There's a purpose for it. There's a way to use it to your benefit. that if you work against Mother Nature and you also work against the science and you work towards old wives' tales, you're gonna you're just not going to get the results you think you're going to get.
Well, but here's the thing: you're not going to get the results you think you're getting, but because you aren't.
Well, let me
You
put
think
it
it's
this
the
way,
best you
Nancy.
can get.
You aren't educated in knowing what the proper way of breeding is. You don't know what you don't know.
That's
Exactly.
true. That's
Say.
true. But
Exactly.
sometimes they know there's a better way, but they don't want to take the time to do it. So, like we said, instead of following science, trying to improve them, then we're doing what Frank was saying earlier. We're just replicating them. All we're doing is keeping the family alive without trying to really improve them.
Well,
So
here's the thing too. Respect. How much respect do you have for yourself? If you're going to breed everything and you're going to sell everything,
I
you're
don't
going to
even think
give
they think of it
everything
like that,
away.
Nancy.
But
I
they
do.
should, because
I do.
everything that leaves
Well,
your farm.
I'm talking about most people.
is
I'm
a
talking
rep-
about most
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
That's not what they're thinking at the time.
yeah.
but everything that leaves your farm is a what's the word I'm looking for?
It's
a
a representation
representation of you.
and your work.
Yeah. I would say almost everybody on the Breeders' Academy, that's how they think.
Oh, I know that's how they think.
Okay.
A lot of chicken people do. Because it's like this. You sell somebody a bad bird and they breed them and it comes out all bad and everything. Your name is mud.
Well, I'm telling you,
After
people
that.
talk. Yeah.
Your name is mud. You give them good birds and they breed them, and every bird they get is 1,000% perfect in every way. And what they want, they'll never mention your name one time. But you sell them bad birds, they will put you underneath your house as far as talking bad about you. Now, I'll tell you that.
Isn't it crazy how that works? That's
Yeah.
why I give out compliments as much as I do. And Kenny goes, "Why did you do that?" And I'm like, because people don't hear the good things. They
don't.
hear about the complaints mostly. So when I see something good, I like your dress. You gave us good service. What a great waitress you are. Just things like that.
You're right,
You
Nancy.
should.
People doesn't hear it, and
No,
when you do, it's when your workers recognized, it gives it purpose. It makes you feel good about what you've done, because the sweat and tears and blood that you have into making that bird. So when people give you a compliment on it, it does feel good because it's reward for your hard work.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one is inheritance. Now, it was interesting because we were talking about heterosis and hybrid vigor. And although we strive for hybrid vigor, we try to maintain hybrid vigor. But the whole idea is that the traits that we like, the traits that we desire, or the traits that they need for survival in the wild have to be able to be passed down from generation to generation. And hybrid vigor is one of those things that they want so bad, but it's not passed down from generation to generation. So the idea is to select in a way, or having birds that can pass their traits to next generation, so that we're passing not only desirable traits, but we're accumulating them in such a way that it becomes more prominent within the family throughout the population over time. So we're little by little, we're improving them. We're selecting the traits we like. We're exaggerating them to the point where we got them where we want them. We fixate them, and we get to a point where the whole family shared them. So the idea is to get a family of birds, or get at least a seed fowl, your Adam and Eve, that can pass those traits to the next generation so that we can move forward. Not all birds can do that. Okay. So we're looking at they must have beneficial, homozygous, dominant traits. The more dominant traits, homozygous dominant traits they have, the better off. Some recessives are okay if that's part of the breed, but a lot of recessives are very dangerous, and they could be even lethal. Okay. We want them to carry those traits at the highest intensity. So the higher the intensity that they carry them, the better it's going to be passed. And if they're more inbred, the more proponent they're going to be, the chances of them passing them to their offspring is going to be better. Okay, so we're always looking for good proponency in the male and good mitochondrial DNA in the female. So the idea, when we're looking at the 4 stages of evolution, inheritance is a big one, Frank.
It's super big. It's that big. But the thing about it is, a lot of people says, this bird has a trait, this bird has a trait, this bird has a trait. A lot of times they're just looking at one trait in particular when the bird has nothing else going for it except for that one trait. And they automatically go to that bird to breed it. In other words, I'm saying a lot of birds that's being bred today should never been bred to start with. Should never be in living and breathing to be able to breed again. Same way with Mother Nature. If it's lacking in any type of way, it's gone. It's fox food, it's coyote food, it's whatever it should be. Mother Nature has a way of taking birds out of the equation that shouldn't be bred back. Do some breed back that shouldn't be bred? Yeah, that it does happen. But Mother Nature's got a way of taking care of that later down the line. If we bred as close as Mother Nature, we would automatically be better breeders than we could ever be just by following Mother Nature's path.
Yeah. See, the problem is, I think when most people buy birds, they just assume that the traits they carry, they're going to be passed to the next generation. Now, if they're already hybrids, chances are they're not going to definitely see it in the following generation. It's by doing, like, let's say, a back cross, taking those hybrid offspring, bringing back to the parents, so we can get a little more from the parents, so that we can, move forward from there. So, and then we see it in the third and fourth generation, and then we're good to go. Now, so what happens is they get the birds they think are going to be good. They breed them one time. Hybrid vigor kicks in. They see variation. It's not the traits they were looking for. They give up on them. Sometimes we need to go a little further than that. Sometimes we need to do the back cross to get more from the parents. But just don't assume that whenever you buy birds that they're going to pass those traits to their offspring. And if you see birds that are not proper, they're not good representations of their breed and variety, chances are they're not going to pass those traits. Okay. If you're dealing with animals, let's say birds, I got a cock and hen, they have contrasting characteristics. Chances are we're definitely not going to see those traits pass to the next generation like we hope. So although inheritance is a big factor, especially in the wild, it's one of the things that matter when it comes to evolution, and whether a species is not only created, but it moves forward generation after generation, survives the elements. We have to emulate Mother Nature. We have to emulate evolution and try to select the best birds we can that have the beneficial homozygous dominant traits, that have those traits at the highest intensity. Okay. And then breed them, and then let's hope that they do pass to the next generation. If not, well, then we do the back cross that we need to get more from the parents, breed them again, and see where we're at. Just don't assume that they're going to pass those genes.
Yeah, 90% of the time, if you get the birds off somebody that you want the birds with the traits they possess, usually you get the birds that look like them, but they're not holding on to those traits that made you want to get them to start with. Kenny's 1,000% right on that. Seen that a million times. People get birds, they expect it to be a carbon copy of the ones on that guy's yard, and a lot of times that's not so.
That's true. Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. Good point. Okay, so there's not a whole lot to say there. That's a pretty simple one. The next one would be overpopulation or overproduction of offspring, which is known as the competition for resources. So what we're usually dealing with in the wild is competition for food, shelter, and access to mates. You can't reproduce. You can't move on to the next generation if you can't do those things. Okay. So it's funny because the whole idea is for them to produce what happened. Okay. I'm trying to get my mindset on this. So what happens in the wild is that they produce more offspring than can survive to adulthood. So a lot of times what will happen, let's just use the jungle fowl, for instance. Let's stay as close to chickens as possible. So an average jungle fowl has maybe 10 eggs. Okay. So let's say all the chicks hatch. A lot of times only a small percentage of those chicks actually survive. So they actually hatch more than can survive. The ones that survive are nice, strong. They have what they need. They're adaptable to their environment. And those are the ones that are actually going to grow up and reproduce. Okay. So we emulate that when it comes to selective breeding. We say it all the time. is that we try to hatch, and this is how I came up with it in the first place, was the overpopulation, overproduction of offspring, was we hatch as many chicks as we can manage and afford. Just like Mother Nature, she's going to select through those, cull out the weak ones, the ones that can't survive, the ones that can survive and are usually pretty good. We want to emulate that. So we want to hatch as many offspring as we can so that we have a really good selection. That way we can cull really hard any sick or defective birds, any substandard birds. Okay. And then from there, we can select the standouts that we want to move forward with. So that was my way of emulating Mother Nature, emulating evolution, and using it towards selective breeding.
Yep. The other animals have to eat.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They eat their culls.
Okay. So the differential survival and reproduction is basically natural selection. Okay. So it's back to variation. So the variation that survive are the ones that are the survival of the environment are the ones that are going to be able to pass their genes to the next generation. And that's the key, is to get them to a point where they survive their environment just long enough to produce offspring that advances the family. And that's what happens in Mother Nature. And so that's what we need to do, is get at least enough. So let's say you buy a trio, or let's say you buy a pair, that you're Adam and Eve, you have offspring. And you say, well, the offspring aren't that good. And I've seen so many people say, okay, well, the offspring weren't any good. I only got a couple that were really good. Well, because I got some that were bad, I'm not breeding any of them. You know, they're showing a flaw. Well, no, that's not how it works. That's not what happens in the wild. That shouldn't happen in our own backyards. So the idea is to breed to them. If we get one cock and hen that are the good representations of what we're looking for, even though all the other ones are bad, those are the ones we want to move forward with. Because that was the whole idea, was to get them to a point where they survive long enough just to have offspring, and hopefully that they produce a small number that we can actually move forward with. And then we cull everything else and then go on. That's how you do it.
I've seen entire yards culled just because of a couple birds.
I know it. Yeah. And performance ability. Now, a lot of things can be attached to that depending on the bird you breed. Okay. I don't want to get into specifics, but I've seen where they saw one had bad performance ability and they killed the whole family because of one bird. When what they didn't realize was it was a polygenic trait. It just, that one bird showed a low intensity. Here, I'll put it up here. Let me put this up real quick. So if I'm looking, again, we harp on this a lot. This is a big one. If you're new to the show, you'll see you'll see us bring this up quite a bit. So when we're dealing with multi-gene traits, which is polygenic traits, okay, we're dealing with measurable traits. So they're quantitative in nature. So when we have, someone's making noise. Nancy, what are you doing? Okay.
I'm just sitting here freezing. That's all.
Okay. It's distracting.
I heard something too, Kenny. I don't know what it was, but I heard it. Like static keys type.
Yeah,
is that what that was?
That was me crossing my arms. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So anyways, this is a distribution population graph. So the idea, let's say performance ability. Well, if you look at the entire family, you're going to see variations on that particular trait. Some are going to be really good. Some are going to be really bad. You have this spectrum in your yard somewhere. And then you're going to have, when you look at the height of the bell-shaped curve, that's what the majority are. And the idea is to get that bell-shaped curve as far over to the good side as possible, so you have more of the good birds. But every family, no matter the trait, is going to show a low intensity, have some birds that show the low intensity. And if I have one bird that shows that intensity or that particular trait, it's crazy to kill the whole family because of that one bird. The problem is they just didn't understand the genetic factors that make up that trait.
And the thing too, Kenny, it may not even been genetics. The genetics could have been there, and it was more or less nutrition or sickness caused him for him to reach his total potential or her potential. There's still different aspects in that could have evolved to make it not the bird's actual fault.
Yeah. But to decide the whole family on one bird, especially
That's
when
crazy.
we're talking about a multi-gene trait, a quantitative trait, man, I see it all the time and it just drives me nuts. It's like, wow, if you only knew what you were dealing with, it could have easily been just, that's the bird you cull. You select the ones that show the highest intensity for that particular trait. You improve the family over time. What do they do? If they keep the family, they add new blood, recombinate the genes, start all over. They didn't improve anything.
That fixed it.
They didn't fix anything.
Yeah, but I'm not joking. I've seen it. I've seen that many, many times. Now, if it's all of them doing it, I could see it in somewhat, but only a couple birds expressing, weakness in that area. I can't see it just for that lower of a percentage. But now I have seen it done many, many, many times.
Okay. The next one is dealing with epigenetics. Now, this one gets a lot of people in trouble because we see this all the time where, let's say I get a trio from Frank. He lives in Kentucky. I live in California. I bring them here. I start breeding them. I start raising them. I'm looking at them maybe a couple years down the road. I start looking at the offspring. I compare them to Frank's, and I'm like, wow, mine are so different than Frank's. Well, there's a few things that can change a family, and it's due to epigenetics, is geographical location, environmental factors such as weather, predation, and food. Okay. And then whether they can adapt to their surroundings, which a lot of times it's disease, whether they can survive the diseases that are in their area. Okay. What happens is the environment, whatever it is between those three factors, stimulates, or it stimulates the genetics in the family. I can't think for some reason today. So what happens is that the histone modifications, which work like knobs, and the DNA methylation, which works like switches, depending on their environment, will actually turn off or turn on genes that were there or weren't there before. So I might get birds from Frank, and they might start showing traits that he never saw before. Okay. It's like a genetic trigger. Okay. Or they work like knobs, where you're dealing with traits that, like the polygenics, where you either gain intensity or lose intensity in that particular trait. And that's all stimulated through epigenetics by the three factors we were talking about. Okay. Now, as a breeder, what is that noise? That is so distracting.
Do you want me to change my shirt? Is my shirt
Don't
too
touch
loud?
your shirt. Is that what it is? Wow.
Okay. About aluminum foil.
It's like, yeah. Like someone's crumpling paper or something like
it's
that.
It's magnifying it for what it's doing.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's my shirt.
Okay. So as a breeder, those are the factors we're dealing with. We don't really have control of those per se, because what's going to happen is what's going to happen. The environment's going to either express certain traits or depress certain traits. So we have to deal with it. So the best we can do as a breeder is what we call the three-legged stool. We try to manage the environment and the management of our farm the best we can. We try to create the environment as best we can. Okay. And then we cull or select for good health, feed them properly, which is nutrition. And then we have from the phenotype, we look at the genetic inheritance, the genes that are expressed. We select accordingly, okay, which is trait selection. And it's all about selection intensity after that. Selecting for the particular trait, exaggerating that trait to a point where it's repeating itself, and then we move from there. So epigenetics is a major factor that confuses people. They don't know what to do. They see things happening. They start blaming other people. They give up on the family, not knowing that no matter what they bring, they could get more birds. I can get more birds than Frank. It's going to do the same thing all over again. Knowing how to handle it, how to deal with it, and how to prove the family from there. So it's get what you can and then move forward and then create the family you want. So if I buy a family from Frank, bring them here, chances are they're going to be different. Can I make a family? Yes. Are they going to be different than Frank's? Yes. But I can definitely build a family from that. if I understand the effects of epigenetics.
Just a change in nutrition alone is a big change. Just one aspect of those three.
Yeah.
Just one can make a totally different strain.
Yeah. So it's this is why I say people say, well, genetics doesn't matter. You know, it's not important. Well, it really is, because without genetics, if you understand the genetic factors, you're not able to look at a trait and know what the genetic factors of that trait are. You can't select them properly. You can't mate them properly. Therefore, you're not going to get the results you hope for. So a lot of people are dependent on, well, they still to this day think it's a blending effect. And then you got epigenetics, which kind of complicates things, because even though you're following genetics, different things can be expressed that you didn't know were there. And I'm not talking about genes that weren't there already there. Those genes were there. They were just hidden. It was epigenetics that expressed it or depressed it.
Allowed it to happen.
Yeah. So
Epigenetics is great. Well, you read it and you understand it. It opens up so many doors for you as far as breeding.
yeah. So all you can do at that point is like I did, because my birds weren't from here. They were from here. They were from Alabama. And they were quite different than everybody else's, and they were expressing all kinds of things. And I said all the time, I looked for the variations that worked in my favor. I bred to the traits that I liked, and over time they improved. And that's all you can really do is look for the beneficial traits, whatever is expressed. You breed to them. You cull the ones you don't like. You cull the sick, defective, the undesirable. Okay, and then from there, it's all about increasing genetic frequency, which is going to give you the uniformity that you need, give you the consistency you need, the predictability and repeatability. So that's it. And then selection intensity, by selecting the highest intensity and improve them there, which is polygenic traits usually.
It can take, on the polygenic side, it can take years to get where you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
But in one breeding, a cock or a hen can be all lost overnight.
And that's what people, I've been preaching that for a long time, that it's so dangerous to add new blood.
Yes.
Okay. That it's like Frank said, that it takes so long, generations, to perfect a multi-gene trait, a quantitative trait, like the ones that are always trying to improve and get. And they think they do it by adding new blood. But it takes so long. Look at some of the traits that we see in all different breeds, whether it's egg production,
Broodiness.
Broodiness. Yeah, I want to be careful what I say. I don't want to go down a different road.
Yeah.
All the performance ability, whatever. All those traits, the birds, they didn't come out of the wild with those traits. Those traits were selectively bred over multiple generations. So those traits were created. They weren't created overnight. They took many years to create. But like Frank said, you breed to the wrong bird, it can be gone overnight. I've seen families destroyed because they weren't careful what they were bringing into their family. And all they had to do is just keep selecting to the highest intensity and improving it over time. So
Seen that more times than I like, even myself. It's happened to me. It's happened to friends of mine. One bird actually destroyed their whole yard and the birds that they had. And they were doing it to improve them, to thinking it was going to make it better.
Yeah.
And it went totally the opposite, So, I mean, it just, you look at it in a way, common sense, you think, yeah, that'll work. But in the real world of genetics and the way it takes place, it doesn't work that way.
Well, it's a delusion. It's they get caught up in like we talked about. They feel like their family is having issues. So they bring in outside blood, which we know now it's hybrid vigor. Most people don't even know it's hybrid vigor. They just see the bump in the offspring and they go, wow, that worked. I've got great offspring again. I'm good to go.
Done.
Yeah. So they think they fixed it. They think that's the answer because they got those results. That way of doing things sticks in their head. Okay. So then they breed them again. They say, okay, I'm going to start tightening up the family. And all of a sudden the offspring are all over the place, which is what happens. And they're like, oh, okay, well, something must have happened. I bred to the wrong bird. It didn't work. They didn't have the genes I was hoping for. Let's bring in outside blood. They get another bump, and they think that's the way to do it. So because they tried to breed pure, one generation usually, and they got better results when they crossed, which we know now is temporary, they think that's the way to go. They don't understand that breeding pure, creating a family, takes multiple generations. It takes time. You know,
because the thing about it, if you make a good family from scratch, you're looking at, you know, even if you start out with good seed fowl to start out with, you're looking at 10, 12 years to get where you need it to be. Maybe longer, you know, if it's not as good.
Yeah, I say it takes 5 to 6 years to see if you're going in the right direction.
Oh, yeah.
You should know by then whether things are starting to work out. And then, like Frank said, it could take 8, 9, 10 years to say, okay, I've improved gene frequency. I'm getting the uniformity I like, and they're starting to shape up. I'm getting good predictability. They're able to repeat themselves. I got a family. And it could take another 5 years to really fine tune them to a point where, like, wow, now they look really regal. What's wrong, Nancy?
No. No. You know what I hate? I gotta say this really quick. You know what I really hate is I got a good question and I'm thinking of it and I'm waiting for you to be quiet and then
I'm never gonna be quiet.
Say the answer before I have a chance to ask the dang question.
Yeah, that
I gave you a button.
No.
Welcome to my world, Nancy.
Oh my God, seriously. So I'm like, how am I going to get into this conversation? Okay, I got a really good question.
You know, actually, the whole time I'm talking, and I feel like
the answer.
The whole time I'm talking, and I feel like I'm going on and on. I have a lot I want to say, but my mind's actually saying, "Okay, wrap it up and give Frank a chance." Okay, you know, because I don't want it. I know because this happened to me one time. I was in Mexico with Tony. And the guy running the event said, "Hey, I want you and Tony to go talk to all these breeders and help them out, give them advice." Right. So I said, "Okay, Tony, you go first." And Tony, and obviously it was going to be tough because I learned from Tony. Right. So he went half an hour giving all this information. And by the time he was done, I had nothing to give. And then Tony goes, "Okay, your turn, Kenny." I go, "My turn what? You just said everything. You didn't give me anything to go on." So that still sticks in my head to this day, that when I'm going on and on, that although I have a lot to say and I want to go further, my mind's saying, "Okay, Kenny, it's time to wrap it up. Shut up. You let Frank, in, you know?
You'll see me, Kenny, be talking. We'll be talking about a subject. You'll see me go.
Yeah.
I'll mark it off as he says it.
You know what I know I went to?
Yeah, my notes.
You know when I went too far? You know when I went too far? Is when I'm done and I give it to Frank. Frank goes,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I go, okay, I didn't leave him anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to Tony.
From there.
Yeah, going back to Tony, he's got such a great accent, and you just love just sitting there and listening to him talk. And yeah, I know exactly what Kenny's saying.
But now I know many a time.
A story for a year. I mean, a long time.
Kenny will set me up, and I've seen this over times. And after the show, oh God, it makes me so frustrated. He'll set me up with something beautiful to take over with, and it's just like right past my head.
That happens to me too. I'll listen to the show, see how it went, because I can't tell by being in it. I have to go listen to it. And I realized Frank, like he said, he set me up so well. He brought up a great topic.
I do that all the time.
And I just switched channels. I just went to another one. And I was like, wow, that was one we could actually elaborate on. That would have been really good information. I just went right by it like it wasn't even there.
That's probably the biggest thing that irks me is when I miss those opportunities, it's gone. You can't go back and redo it over. And it's just like, daggone it. I wish I could do that over again, you know?
It's
either like a break.
It's either that or I'm scrolling through the outline trying to figure out where in the hell he is.
Well, I skip around. I skip around a lot, you know. So
some things
we already talked about I didn't need to talk about again. But I do want to talk about this, which would be the next challenge, and what has to do with evolution. It kind of really goes what we're talking about now is gene flow. Okay, so like we said, a lot of people are always adding new blood. They think they're making a family. They think outcrossing is always the answer. I see it in both dogs and chickens, and they think adding new blood all the time is the answer. Well, and they think they can still call it a family or a strain or a bloodline. No, it's not. They're mongrels. Okay. They got so many bloodlines in them. There's nothing consistent about them whatsoever. Okay. And they can't repeat themselves like you think. So gene flow is interesting when it comes to evolution, because what happens is you have, let's say, a species, or you have let's say a group of birds in the wild, and they keep evolving because new birds from the outside keep coming in and they keep breeding to them. You only see a species only comes about when the flow of genes stops. Okay. And then they start to refine themselves after that. Well, we have to follow that too. I may add new blood. I may go gene shopping and look for genes. I might like the genes from this bird. I might like the gene from that breed, and I might bring them in there, but I don't have a family until I stop bringing in new birds. I start doing what I tell everybody to do, is start looking for the variations I like, culling really hard anything that's obviously a fault, but doesn't match what I think is the ideal trait for that particular breed or what I'm trying to create. And then after a while, they start to become a family. They start to become more uniform. That's only going to happen, Frank, when they stop the flow of genes. And we'll go back to what we were saying a minute ago, was you have what they call the 1/16th infusion method, where they think, okay, well, the family seems to get a little inbred. A lot of times they don't even see evidence of it, but they feel that they're getting too inbred. They think they need to refresh the blood. So they add new genes to freshen the blood. Well, they didn't stop the flow of genes. That's no longer a family. They actually brought in hybridization, changed the family, and now they're starting all over. And that family ain't going to become a family again until, again, they stop the flow of genes, fine tune them, and stop doing that altogether. So
I'm going to say it again. And it seems like that's all I say, but that's what selection's all about. That's where the true breeder comes out and the selection comes in. I tell you what, in all the obstacles we have in the breeding game itself, selection can get you past every one of those if done correctly.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people go, well, what is gene flow when it comes to selective breeding? Okay. Simple. Outcrossing, crossbreeding, or infusion. And actually, even let's say you have a family that has a lot of genetic diversity, but you haven't added new blood. Random breeding. Not being very selective about the traits that you want to progress. Okay. So even though you have a family, you've never added outside blood, and you see that variation, that genetic diversity, if you're just random breeding, that's still gene flow.
Yeah.
It
truly is, because the thing about it is, and I couldn't imagine that, is every 3 or 4 years adding outside blood, every 3 or 4 years adding outside blood every time they need that. You're going to have birds every 3 or 4 years. You're going to have different birds. But people do that and they think they're keeping their same strain. They still call them a pure strain, even though they're adding blood to them every 3 or 4 years. That's not a pure strain. That's not even close to being a pure strain.
I used to think the chicken breeders were the worst at this. I'm actually realizing it. I hate to say it, and I don't want to offend anybody, but the dog breeders are worse.
I told Kitty.
Outcrossing is a major part of their breeding. Look at their pedigrees. They're always bringing in blood from outside, and they can sit there and call it a bloodline. They can call it a line. No. Okay. And the closest they come to tighten up the gene pool is through what we call in and inbreeding, which is aunt to niece and aunt to nephew, uncle to niece, and maybe cousin to cousin. That's not inbreeding. That's not line breeding. That's in and inbreeding. Because when you think about it, when you're breeding an uncle to its niece, there's still half of that uncle's blood that's outside blood. That's still gene flow. You're not tightening up anything. You're not creating a family. You're still introducing outside blood.
The reason for that, though, don't you, Kenny? The reason
What's
they do
that?
it is
Why?
keep from them going, pew. They keep adding just a little bit of diversity in them to keep them going, to keep from them flatlining. But as soon as they start getting closer, they don't know how to keep that momentum up. Their birds go in a downcline. So I added blood again.
And rarely do they, and I'm talking about dogs and chickens, rarely does any of these breeders reach inbreeding depression. They don't even understand what true inbreeding depression is. Inbreeding depression is a lack of vigor. Okay. As far as defects, deleterious genes, genetic diseases, that has nothing to do with inbreeding depression. That's not even the same thing. That's a bloodline that's contaminated. So dogs, you can test them and see if they have those. If they don't, you're good to go. Chickens, we can breed them, do a test mating, look at the offspring, breed enough offspring, we can get a good idea what's in them. And then we can know how to match them up after that, or whether they're worth breeding after that, because we can call them. So understand that inbreeding depression, not only do you not understand it, but it's harder to reach than you think. And I don't care if it's whatever, dogs or chickens. And same thing with chickens as it is with dogs. They're so afraid. I'm hearing it more and more in both, that they're really basing their families on the pedigree, which is the COR. So they're analyzing the coefficient of relationship through the pedigree, determining how often certain individuals show up in the pedigree. If I'm trying to clone an animal, if I'm trying to clone my bird, I want that bird to show up in the pedigree a lot. Okay. And then you got the COI, they're trying to reduce the amount of coefficient of inbreeding. I want that family to be as homozygous as possible. I want complete homozygosity if I can. I don't believe you're going to get to the point where it's dangerous. I like I said, no matter how pure the family are, you're still going to get variation. So I don't think the COI is that important. I want a highest COI as possible. I want a coefficient of inbreeding that is so high that I'm getting homozygous birds. I'm getting predictability, uniformity. I want them to be able to repeat themselves. So if you're still getting good vigor, yeah, inbreeding is not going to hurt you one little bit. If you're getting defects, then your birds or your dogs are flawed. That's the truth of it right there.
You said the main aspect of that, Kenny, in your statement when you first started. They think they're experiencing inbreeding depression.
That's right. That's right.
By smaller size, bigger size, something to that, they automatically think they're experiencing. Very few people, I think, has ever experienced inbreeding depression. Very few.
No, they've never actually seen it in real life. Yeah. They only hear things. They hear people talking about a high COI, and to them, 6% COI is like huge to them. They're like, oh my God, they're too close. You need to add new blood or something like that. And I'm like, oh, you crazy? They've never, like you said, they've never experienced true inbreeding depression.
It's hard to get there. Very hard.
Yeah.
Even trying to get there, it's hard.
Now they'll talk about like dogs. They'll talk about lower litter sizes. Okay. And then some will brag that they get a really high litter size. I heard a breeder, which actually made sense. And this is hybrid vigor. He said, you should be getting, depending on the breed, maybe 8 to 10 pups. He says, that's plenty. And I agree. Now, some that are getting 12, 15, 16, 18 pups, he goes, that's not good. That's the product for hybrid vigor. And he's right.
It is.
You're getting that many pups because of hybrid vigor, not because you improved the genetic composition of that particular animal, because that's a hybrid animal and it's producing, or you bred it to another animal that's not related. You got hybrid vigor and now you're getting large puppy sizes. It's not going to last.
They get one that's got 10 puppies. They say, well, it was inbred. That's the reason it didn't have it more than 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it a million times.
8 to 10 pups for most dogs should be enough. How many can she milk anyways? Or, nurse, I mean.
Yeah.
So the things they're looking for are only produced through hybrid vigor, but it's not sustainable. It's not repeatable and that kind of thing. So I think they're misguided. I just laugh at people who make a big deal about analyzing the COR, the coefficient of relationship, which is fine. But I'm always on the opposite side. I want to see that particular animal showing up quite a bit in that pedigree. That's the whole idea, that I want to clone that particular animal. I want a high COI. And then they make a big deal about the COI being high, which is what I want. I want homozygosity. If I'm not dealing with any defects or deleterious genes or genetic health issues, then I want to breed those. I want to get them as close as I can. If I have those kind of issues and I got a flawed animals, I need to maybe think about getting a different animal to breed.
Well, if it was intended for dogs to have that many pups, he wouldn't. Mother Nature wouldn't have given them just so many breasts.
Yeah,
had 15
exactly.
to 20 breasts, you know.
That should tell you right there there's something wrong with that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then I think this is the last one. Should be, because I don't. Okay. So genetic drift is an interesting one, and it's part of evolution. It's what we use to maybe like either restore a family or start a family from another breeder. So if I get a trio from Frank, we're talking about a small sample of his whole yard. Or let's say I've got a family of animals and a disease comes through and knocks a good proportion of my population down to a handful of birds. Okay, whatever rises from that is genetic drift. So we're dealing with small populations from a larger population drawn down to a smaller population. Now we're dealing with a limited number of genes. Depending on the family that you got them from or the family that they derived from, the purer they are, the better we're going to be able to move forward with and actually create a family from that. So if I have birds that I had a really good family, they're really well established, a disease hits me, it's not going to be as big a deal because a smaller number of birds, yeah, I'm dealing with smaller number of genes, but I'm actually moving the family forward in a really good way because I'm not dealing with a lot of genetic diversity. And if I'm dealing with, let's say I get birds from Frank and I bring them home, and I've got a small sample of his birds, and they're a good sample of his birds, the chances are, if I'm selecting them properly using a proper breeding program, I'm actually going to create a family. There's a good chance it's going to be better than Frank's.
Yep.
Because he's still dealing with the large number of birds where I'm dealing with a smaller number of birds, and I can take them in a specific direction. So that's a good thing. So the idea is to get that small number of genes. Hopefully you're dealing with good birds, because if you have bad birds with bad genes, you're obviously going to go in the wrong direction. So selection of your seed file at this point is imperative. But if I have good birds, I'm starting from there, I can go in such a really good direction. I'm going to create a family faster. One more thing, Frank, I want to say this. Let's say I feel like my family isn't improving very well. They're not doing very well. They're not going in the right direction. They have a lot of issues, and I'm just not making progress. So what I would do at that point is I would look at all my birds. I would pick the best cock and the best hen. And I would say, okay, I'm not breeding anything else. I might even get rid of a lot of those. And I start from the best cock and best hen. And all of a sudden, my family just takes off because of genetic drift. I'm actually doing a smaller number of genes from the best birds, and it goes in a completely different direction. And it excels like it never did before. That's genetic drift, using genetic drift to your benefit to either improve, preserve, or create a strain. It's incredible.
I've seen it actually with this right here, what Kenny's referring to. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen yards, say a disease come in, wiped out all the birds except for 10%, maybe 5%, whatever it may be, down to a lower population. And then the time they built back with those birds, they'd have nicer birds than they had when they first started with them, you know. So I've actually seen this in real life.
Genetic drift can be your friend or your enemy, depending on how you use it. Now, if I had a couple of birds, let's say I lost a bunch of my birds, or let's say I just got a couple of birds from Frank. Now, just breeding them haphazardly, not knowing really what to select, you're going to go in a bad direction. So even though you're either downsizing your birds, or you lost a bunch of birds, or you're starting with 2 new birds, I'd still work them through like the Founders Program, because that's going to make all the difference. Just because you tighten up the gene pool and you're working with lesser genes doesn't mean it's a guaranteed, because you still have that variation to deal with. So I always suggest use something like the Founders Program to create your family from there. So just understanding genetic drift and how to use it properly isn't enough. You still have to use a really good breeding program to move forward with.
Yeah, a lot of people says, well, I don't want to take the time. If it's a true family, it's a true family. I don't want to take the time and run them through another breeding program. Well, the thing about it is, if they're a true family, if they are a true family and somebody has bred them as such, they're going to fly through it, aren't they, Kenny? They're going to go through the founders program so fast you'll never even know it.
Yeah, because I can think of one stage they can actually skip, and let's say stage 4 is it they're not going to have to do as many. They can actually skip a little bit of that too and go right into stage 5. Yeah, it's a lot quicker if you have an established family doesn't have a lot of problems. Yep,
much, and they will go through it with these.
Yeah, so that's the last one for this particular group of challenges.
That was a good outline. That was a good outline.
Yeah, so the next one we're going to do, let me think. I think it's genetics, because I created 12 different challenges, and I decided to, so next time we're going to talk about genetics.
Yeah, basic
We'll
genetics.
go deeper. Yeah, that's going to be a fun one too.
That'd be a really good one, man. Yeah, really good.
And how many stages is that? Oh, it's only one. It's one challenge. So we're only going to deal with one challenge, and then the part 4 will be the last 3 challenges, I think.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of parts of that though.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty. It's what 2/3 of the one we just went through.
Well, the evolution challenge was broken up into 3, and I'm actually surprised we got through it all. I was a little worried we weren't going to get through it all, but
you got a good start.
Yeah, I just want people to understand how important not only science, not only genetics, but evolutionary biology is. Understanding the mechanisms of evolution and how they work and how they relate to selective breeding and how we can use them to improve, to create, improve, and maintain our strains. That if you can understand the mechanisms, then you can better understand selective breeding, understand why we do some of the things we do. I mean, like I said, I created the founders program based on evolutionary biology, the mechanisms. I want to fire her. Shit.
Well, look at it this. What does every species in the wild have in common?
I don't know. I can't think now.
They're identical to each other.
Ask me that question again.
They all have the same conformation. They look like siblings,
okay.
And that's the way it should be with their breeding. Our birds, they should all look identical. They should have the same attributes. They should be able to reproduce themselves. Mother Nature makes sure that hers does. So with us, we can speed it up even faster. There's no excuses that we have that they should be showing that much diversity or be that much difference between them.
That's the only difference between us. We're doing the same things. We call them different. We name them different. Our methods are similar to what Mother Nature does, but Frank, that's really the only difference is we do it faster.
Light years.
Yeah.
Light years ahead. What takes thousands of millions of years takes us, just a fraction of the time, like we said a while ago, anywhere from 8 to 12 years,
Yeah. So, I'm hoping people understand the value of learning this. We teach a lot of it in the Breeders Academy, and it changed my world. It really made the difference, and because genetics is basically by evolutionary biology. It's one of the, what do you call it? It's just one of the things that you have evolution, you have the mechanisms of evolution, but genetics is actually a big part of that too. So once I started digging into genetics, I don't remember exactly how somebody said something. It might have been, I know what it was. I did a show with Tony on natural select. I forgot what I called it, but it had a lot to do with natural selection and how we breed our fowl. And him and I did a big talk, and I actually made a podcast episode out of it. And I think that was one of the things that made me dig into evolutionary biology a little bit deeper and understand it was like a light bulb went off that the not only the just how similar they are, but how beneficial they were. And I don't think I'd be where I am today, or even the Breeders' Academy is where it is if it wasn't for that understanding. So,
Yeah, and the next show that we have, we may want to discuss this too. This has been a big topic on the internet. Cross Creek. I know the reason he's saying this. Straight comb to straight comb gives you P combs. LOL.
Yeah.
And it's just the things some people believe is just, they go against genetics.
Didn't
They
you
go
get
against science.
arguing with someone about that recently or something?
Yeah,
like that?
he was telling me that his birds actually produced P combs from 2 straight-headed birds.
Yeah. Did you get in a big argument with him about it or something?
Nah,
like that?
just discuss. He wanted to make an argument, but we were just talking, and I guess he rode off on his horse, his uniform. But it's just people refuse to embrace science, and it's what it is. I bred chickens for many, many years, all my life, and something I've never gotten is a P-headed bird from 2 straight-headed parents. I've never ever got that. So I would like to see the first one. I really would.
If that's true, everything we know about genetics is wrong.
That's what I told him.
It doesn't work.
I said, if you're right, I have wasted a lot of time and a lot of money in my education. If you're right, everything I believe in is a lie. If that be the case.
Yeah.
So, but now, in theory, it could happen with a mutation, but that would set forth a total upside down on genetics, which it's a theory. It's not happened, and it never will happen.
Well, yeah, but mutation wouldn't create let's see, a pea comb in a straight comb family. The mutation's not going to. Well, it wouldn't know what to do. A pea comb is a very specific trait. A mutation would create other things, So
yeah, but
I don't.
Along with the mutation could help make a pea comb. I mean, in theory, it could happen, but there's a 0% chance of it because it's a theory.
Mutations. People put too much stock in mutations. Mutations are rare, and they rarely take hold, because to have a mutation become a big deal may show up in a bird here and there, but for it to be a big deal, you have to actually breed to it with 2 birds carrying the same mutation.
Color about the only thing.
Yeah,
that's about the only thing that you're ever going to get by with on a mutation. That would be about the only aspect, like a sport or something.
So what's the difference
funny,
between?
Nancy? Wait! What was so darn funny?
We'll get to that.
Now that we're at the end,
we'll get to that before we end the show.
We're ending it now. So
no, I have a question. What's the difference between a mutation and a defect? They're not one and the same, right?
Mutation's spontaneous.
Yeah.
Defects is basically a trait. It's just not a good trait. Okay. Deleterious genes are similar to, I wouldn't call, some may be mutations, but some are similar to a mutation, or could be a sickness, a genetics illness. So, okay, now tell me what was so funny, because we're at the end.
Okay.
Better make it good too.
Blueberry pancake.
I'm going to incriminate myself, Okay, so Robbie started talking about how he's hungry and he wants pancakes, and Joseph says, and bacon. And then I say, well, strawberries on top of the pancakes. And so then we're going on this long stint about talking about bacon and pancakes, and you guys are talking about some serious biz here. And here we are in the chat room talking about food. And so I say, we're being terrible. We should be talking about chicken. And Joseph says, I lost it. I'm so sorry. I lost it. The Breeders' Academy meets Hunger Games. May the genetics be ever in your favor.
Yeah, I saw that.
I lost it. Thanks a lot, Joseph.
I'm looking, I haven't opened it once, so I have the number here. We have 168 comments.
Oh, we've got that. We've got that. Now, that's small amount compared to what we normally have. Yeah, that's a small amount.
Geez. No one's even listening to us.
And that's with only 44 viewers. Imagine if we had 70, 80, or 100.
Oh my gosh. That's because us guys that are in the Breeders Academy, you already know all this stuff, so we're talking about food instead. So,
Yeah, you
but-
can tell it's the members. They're like,
yeah,
"Oh,
yeah, it was the members. Yeah,
yeah,
we
yeah,
were talking.
We get to read this stuff all the time.
Well,
No need for us to be
here's the
there.
problem we talk about all the time is and we're going to get back to the members roundtable because we go more in depth and we cover things, we go deeper, and we cover some things that we just don't cover in the front end. But it's difficult to cover something in the front end that we're willing to share that the members don't already know, that they don't hear a million times.
Yeah.
They could finish their sentences.
They could. I know they could.
They could.
Yeah.
And
If you watch how
sometimes
they talk,
do.
if you see how they talk on the groups page, it's like, I'm like a proud papa
Oh,
because I can see that they're really absorbing what we're teaching and what they're learning in the website.
I
and
like to
they're
watch
sharing it with each other. It's really neat, or I see them popping up somewhere else and they're talking to people and it's like, wow, they're really learning. This is so cool.
If
We're
I'm
really
in a group, I know exactly. I don't even have to look at the name. I can read the comment and I know if they're a member or not.
Yeah.
I don't have to see the name. I know they're a member just the way they're talking.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. So proud.
So real quick before we go, and I know we're getting up on 2 hours, Giles is asking, how big should his pens be, or how many chickens can he raise on, say, 100 square, like, what is it? 100 yards? It's SQM. So what would you call that?
100 square, like a house lot, like 100 foot
Square feet?
lot. Yeah.
Well, I like pens as big as you can get them, but I would say like a brood pen, I would want to see at least this. To me, this is small. 4x8 would be small, but that was as small as I would go. But like I have some out here that are 6x8, and then I have some that are 8x8. I like the 8x8s. I like to have more 8x8s.
Now I use the little 40x40 or the 39x39x39s, but I single mate. So I just put the rooster in for a little bit, take him out and do that. That's plenty big enough just for a hen. But now if you're going to do more than one hen and cock, you need a little bit bigger place because they start picking on each other. They get bored.
Mm-hmm.
Bad things can happen from that. So you want to give them all the room you can. But
and then I got other pens out here that are 6x12x6. I like those too. Those are good.
Yeah, the dog kennels.
Yeah, those work out really good too. So I like them to be as big as they can be. Yeah.
The more room you got, the better off you are. But with me, I do the single mating bit, so it makes it a little bit easier on me.
Yeah, my biggest suggestion for that person is, yes, it's about the area you have to work with. Yes, it's about the size of the pens, but it's a more bigger deal about how many breeds you're raising.
That's it.
I always say that you're always best to specialize in 1, 2, but 3 at the most.
I wouldn't 4.
Go any more than that.
But I do every 2 years. I do 2 this year, 2 the next. Then while I'm breeding those, these are maturing.
Yeah.
So I got them to where I can flip them over. It works out real good for me. But now it's not something. If you're just starting out, you want to have 1 and 1 only. That's it. No more.
But you're an experienced breeder.
You're talking about variety, right?
Yeah, variety. Yeah. But where I've been doing it for a while, I've got myself on a routine. And plus, I used to have 10 times that. So
yeah.
So
he's got 300 square feet. So is that, Kenny, is that kind of small, or is that?
Yeah, that's nothing. That's not very big
small?
at all.
All right. So stick to 1 variety.
Yeah.
And single
mate.
mate.
Now that's what I do anyway. To walk it through and do it right, you want to do it. Well, even with me, I never would make work on 2 families at the same time. I work on 1 family at a time, and that's it.
Yeah, because you got to have enough pens for every family that you're breeding.
Most definitely, it can work against you. Overcrowding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay,
and
is that it? Well,
once they get, you take, especially hens, they get the taste of blood from another one.
Oh yeah.
I don't care how big your space is. They will haunt that other chicken. They're very carnivorous animals.
Yeah. So, anything you guys want to say before we wrap it up?
Are we here next week?
I think so. What do you think, Frank?
Next week.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't have my phone.
Just
Oh, wait, let
Friday,
me-
as far as I know.
Let's see.
I'll be missing my work Christmas party, but
I don't have
I-
anything special.
I'll
So
be
as far
here.
as I know, as long as Frank's okay with it, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as it's not Christmas Eve or Christmas, I'm good.
Oh, let me check that. Let me check
Yeah,
that.
when is
What day?
that?
What
That's
day?
not
I'm just
till-
wondering. What day is that, by the way? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm good to go.
Yeah, we're good shape. We got another 2 weeks easy.
I don't even know what day it is. Tell you the truth, I'm so busy. So
Heck, listen to this. They had the earthquake of the day, so I was worried. Amanda told me about it. I automatically get the phone. I send it out to Kenny, and I goes, "Hey, did you guys feel the tremor?" And he goes, "What? Did we have an earthquake?" Question mark. And I'm like, Jesus.
no,
It was a 7-pointer. No,
Yeah, I
it
didn't
was
feel
too
a
far
thing.
away.
I didn't feel a thing.
Yeah,
So-
but you know, Nancy, I was telling Kenny the one that we had in the 80s when I was a kid out in Los Angeles. What was it, 8 or 9? The big
Yeah,
one.
it was a
We-
bad
oh.
one. Yeah.
We felt that here in Kentucky.
No,
Yes, sure did.
really.
Sure did. There was Mom had a thing of Kool-Aid sitting on the table, and we was outside. We didn't feel it, and
Yeah,
Mom,
yeah,
you know, told us to come in. We walked in, and it was going and just shaking all over the table.
I didn't feel it either. That big one in LA. I think I was on a golf tournament. So like you said, when you're outside,
Outside,
Yeah.
I didn't feel anything. So all I know is that some of the players that lived in that area had to leave the tournament to go. And
wow.
yeah,
And now
so
the
my competition got really low, really small.
the one they had in Virginia, I think 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. We was inside, and if it hadn't been for a fish aquarium, we'd never known it. You know, but the fish aquarium, the water was sitting out of it. And so I walked outside, and Amanda's brother lived across the street, and he was running up down the street, looking up in the air and looking around, trying to see what was going on. We
Well, that's what
had
I
no
do.
idea.
When we think there's an earthquake, that's the first thing I do is look at our ceiling fans to see if they
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I look at too. Where we live, it's pretty stable. It's really weird. It's like you'll hear earthquakes all around us, but we don't hardly feel it. And when we do, it's like, was that earthquake? You're never sure. It's almost like you don't feel it, but you hear the
You
windows
hear it.
rattle. You hear it.
You hear it. Yeah. The
They never
windows
did
rattle
say,
here.
they never did say anything about the aftershock, if it ever happened or not. I never heard anything about that, but they were given tsunami warnings.
Yeah,
you know,
I
after,
heard. Yeah,
after that.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
call Kenny up, worried about him. He's like, "What? Did we have an earthquake?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Down
was a good
here
one.
in Southern California, down here in San Diego area, if we get a tsunami, it's usually from something that happened across the pond, you know, across the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
That we'll get something. But in Northern California, yeah, they'll get it
But that's
usually
common up
before
there.
us. Yeah.
The San Francisco area is known for earthquakes, big time.
Yeah.
It's like the more north you go in California, the worse it
Yeah.
gets.
Yeah, well, you guys got those mountains up there too, so that helps you guys a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I tell Kenny all the time. It's we have so much granite. We're sitting on so much granite here in Ramona that I feel, and I'm not a geologist, so I could totally be wrong, but I feel like the tremors, they hit those rocks and bounce off those rocks and go back the other way. So when there is like say in Borrego Springs, where there's a lot, it's basically a lot of desert area over there.
They get a lot there.
They get a lot there, and we'll feel it here, but it's nothing like, oh God, get yourself outside right now.
Yeah, just a little makes the glass in the windows.
Yeah, that's
kinda
about it.
rattle a
Most of the
little bit.
time, I've had one, and I remember I was standing in the living room next to the TV. Tony and I were getting ready to walk out. She was little at the time, and it was such a jolt that really caught my attention. It's like it was so quick and it was such a quick jolt and strong. And I was like, oh shit, you know, it really caught my attention big. It's like,
Just give you a taste of what it could do.
oh, it was like, God, if this, yeah, I was in, when I was in the Navy up there in Lemoore, California, up in the San Joaquin Valley near Fresno. I was sitting in the barracks, and all of a sudden I felt like someone was kicking my bed. I'm like, what the hell? I thought one of my friends was like kicking the edge of my bed because I was sitting on it doing something, and nobody was there. And all of a sudden I felt another jolt, and my lockers because they were unlocked, popped open. I was like, shit. I look out the window. I could see 2 different barracks together, and they were like moving. I could see them moving like this. Okay. So I got up and I started running out of the place. It was moving us so much that I was running into the walls. I couldn't help it. I was running into the walls all the way out there till I got outside. We found out that the city next to us, Kalinga, was leveled. And I don't even want to tell you what I saw there because I had to go and help clean that up. Leveled that town.
Yeah.
That was the worst earthquake I've ever been in.
Mother Nature is the most powerful thing that we'll ever witness or experience.
Yep.
It's just something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The next one is bad breeders.
That's true.
Bringing it back to chickens.
That's true.
That's the next big disaster. Breeding poor chickens.
Part 3.
We're going to do part 3 next week.
And
Genetics,
then we'll
be there,
talking
be
about
square.
flood.
No.
We'll be talking about floods.
Yeah, it might be raining by then, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. No mention rain. Just
Yeah, we're not getting any this winter.
knock on wood.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, we're staying dry the whole winter.
It'll probably wash you guys off then. If they say you're not getting any, you'll get flooded probably.
No, we're in a La Nina. We're not getting crap.
Well, that's what they tell us.
Nothing.
Oh, we're not going to get any rain, and then pow, the skies open up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for showing up, joining us, making Nancy laugh, ruining the show.
I appreciate you all keeping me awake here.
See you guys. Thank you, Nancy, for joining us. I know you're really tired. You're working all day. I was surprised she even showed up. Thanks, Frank. I really appreciate you joining me.
No problem. Glad to have you, man.
Okay.
Have a
see you
good
guys
week,
later.
everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.